Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Ron Vaimberg podcast. And today I am incredibly excited to have Jen Du Plessis on with us today. And Jen is a 42-year veteran of the mortgage industry. Her accomplishments and her accolades as far as what Jen has done in the industry is just incredible. But rather than me, tell you everything about Jen, I'm gonna just let Jen. First of all, Jen, let me welcome you to the podcast. Let's start there.
Thank you. Thanks. I
Jen,
appreciate it.
J-
Yeah.
Jen, thank you so much for being part of this. And as I just mentioned, you've accomplished so much in this industry. We've known each other for well over 20 years. We've been in the same circles, spoke at same events, and you have transitioned into many different parts of the business over your career. And so let's just start off with even the name of the name of this podcast today for you or for this topic is "Where is your fire?" And I know you're very, very passionate about success, about everything that you do. But so let's just give our listeners a quick history, although many of them may already know you, but let's just give them that quick history
Yeah.
of your world.
Well, and it's hard to do that too, because, I think one of the things that I've tried to do is stay very humble my entire career and just be under the radar. I didn't, want to be the flashy and have to, it's not ego for me. It's not like, for example, it's not ego to fill a room of 200 people just to make me feel good. I'd rather have 20 people in there and dig deep. And so one of the challenges with being humble is not bragging, right? So, like that's probably the hardest thing. And so it's hard for me to sort of give you this. So the easiest way for me to do it is just to bullet it, if that's okay.
That's
Uh
perfect.
yeah, because I really just don't like, I'm a little private when it comes to sharing a lot of things that I've done, but yeah, 40 some years in the business. I started off, just so you know, this is the craziest story. Well, there's two parts to it, but I started off as um DECA. Do you remember DECA? I mean, for this, we remember
What
DECA
is it?
in school, and I think it's still there, but the DECA club where you're doing marketing or whatever. But
Sounds familiar.
I learned shorthand and I had to take a typing class on the old fashioned kind of typewriter. And as I'm taking the class, so what you do is you take these classes because back then I was gonna, all women were gonna be just secretaries, I guess,
Oh, wow.
support
Okay.
staff.
Okay.
So I was taking typing and I was taking shorthand, and you take the class in the morning and then you go to a job in the afternoon. So in 11th grade and 12th grade, my job in the afternoon was to go to a title company and type title policies. And I remember the day that we got the IBM Selectric with the ball, and
Yes.
we still had to insert like, like now we know it as whiteout tape, right? We had to
Yeah, you
insert
had insert.
whiteout
Yep.
tape
I know what you're
into
talking
backup
about.
to make a mistake, right? It didn't have an auto backup mistake thing. It's just funny. Um, and that's where my career started. And when I was, and I don't even count that time, right? But then when I went
Right.
to college, I was going to college to be a cardiologist. I was in pre-med school. I went to
Oh,
college to be a
wow.
cardiologist, and we didn't have fax machines. So I rode my bicycle in the freezing cold weather in Colorado at Colorado State. Um, with the bicycle and stuff, to deliver title policies, all of this for lawyers title, because they were so happy with me down in Colorado Springs that they hired
Wow.
me in Fort Collins. And I would deliver title policies that back then took what, 6 weeks to get. Appraisals were 6 to 8 weeks to get, all that crazy
Hmm.
stuff. So anyway,
Hmm.
that's kind of where it started. And then I graduated with a degree in architectural design and construction engineering, and I couldn't get a job in that because I was the only woman in the class. And so they sent me, Snelling and Snelling sent me on a job interview to a mortgage company and a bank. And I never made it to the bank, thank goodness, right? Because we make more money in mortgages. And I was a receptionist slash setup clerk. And that's where the whole thing started. So anyway, fast forward, et cetera, I was an underwriter for 9 years. My underwriting number was A421 for FHA.
Okay.
A421, one of the first underwriters, delegated underwriters. Underwrote for 9 years, then went into sales, then went into sales management, managed, 300 salespeople at one time, all selling NAGAM loans. That's all we did. We sold NAGAM
Remember
loans.
those
Everyone else
days.
called them, option loans because they didn't want to say NAGAM, and they're NAGAM, so let's call them NAGAM.
Yep.
Became top producer in in that company before I became in management. Have lots of management experience, which is why I'm great at building teams. And then, decided I wanted to do it for myself. So I ended up funding over $1 billion in loans. And was in the top 200 loan officers, I think 4 or 5 times. Um, started a podcast as a result of that because people wanted to pick my brain. So I said, "Oh, I heard about this thing called a podcast." That was 12 years ago. And that's how I'll answer questions. So that's Mortgage Lending Mastery. We're the longest running podcast in our space. And it just blossomed from there. My technique in lending was teaching, teaching realtors and becoming a roaming coach to realtors. And I thought, that's what I'll do. I'm a roaming underwriter. I'll just teach. And that led to realtors asking me if I could coach them. And so I've actually coached realtors longer than I've coached loan officers.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and still coach realtors because they have their issues. And I encourage loan officers to be roaming coaches for realtors. That's what I encourage them to do. But anyway, so that's probably not a bulleted thing. I have over
That's
20
perfect.
number one best-selling books. I have 2 podcasts. I have a television show called Tell Me I Can't. I'm an internationally award-winning speaker now. And, I've spoken with everybody that you can imagine in and out of the mortgage space, with Tony
Yep.
Robbins, Darren Hardy, and I traveled with Les Brown. I was on his faculty, so I've learned a lot from Les Brown and, Sharon Lechter, who co-wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad. She's one of my mentors. So it's been a great it's been a great career, and I just continue to push ahead. And, Dave Stevens, everybody knows Dave. Dave and I have been friends for over 35 years. He's the one who hired me out of being an underwriter. So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, we're just really close friends, and we've been friends forever. Yeah.
Yeah, he's absolutely as well as you, of course, but David is also an amazing voice for this industry. One of the most level-headed voices, I would say, in the industry for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, you know, first of all, your history is, or your resume is amazing, and that's, you've achieved incredible success in this industry. Now, I titled this podcast with you, "Where is Your Fire?" And I
Yeah.
think pretty much in the first 5 minutes of this podcast, everybody pretty much can tell that you've got a fire.
Yeah.
So let me start with this question first. What drives you?
Yeah. Um, there's so many things that drive me. There's not a specific thing that drives me. One of the things that I've learned in my tenure, in business as a whole, and I have 4 businesses, so I don't just, it's not about mortgages anymore. Still have a mortgage company, but I don't do loans anymore.
Right.
But um, what I've learned is that there's a couple things I've learned. One is, so I have this mantra, and everybody that I coach knows this mantra. It's mindset plus mechanics equals momentum. And the reason why I say that is because it's so hard, it's so easy for us in this industry to get involved in the mechanics. And yet I still say there's some lack of mechanics in our industry because everyone's using computers and, and especially when we get to blended rate, and this, Ron. Right? When we get to blended rate for these refinances, gosh, I hope everybody can calculate blended rate. It's not average, it's blended. And you've got to learn this because people have first and seconds right now, and they're going to be rolling them into one. But it's the mechanics of understanding how to structure a mortgage for a client for the best use to create their wealth. It's not for the rate. It's just for their wealth. And you've got to push the paperwork aside and learn how to do that. So, but for years and years, and I'm a great student at knowing my numbers. I'm just a numbers girl, always have been. I mean, come on, look, I'm an engineer. I'm process oriented, I'm numbers oriented, right? So I get really into the mechanics of it. And because I was reared in a man's world, because this was so man heavy, heavy in the past, I didn't spend a lot of time. I don't care about your puppy. I don't care about your, like, I didn't care about that, right? But I had to learn that I need both sides. And as men and women, you need both sides. And men, you don't have to care about the puppy, but you got to stop and you got to ask them some questions about them because they care about you. They want to know how much you care. Um, So I was so much into the mechanics. I was doing 50 million a year as in top 1%, but I was dying. I was just working a gazillion hours,
Oh, okay.
full of excuses, right? I've always been slender, but I didn't feel good about anything because I called my house hotel home. I'd get home at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, go to bed, can't sleep, writing all the comments down of everything I forgot. Oh my gosh, I didn't call them back. I didn't lock their loan right. Oh my God, why didn't they give me the deal? All these things, wake up in the morning and just repeat the whole process. And I was just miserable. And I really thought, there's got to be a way. And it's called cracking the top producer code. It's what I use
Right.
in my coaching. But
You do realize right now you're giving me a horrible flashback of my own life, but
I'm sure. And everybody else's,
I'll
right?
let you continue.
Right, everybody else's, right? And I would just repeat that, and I say, "Gosh, there's just gotta be a way." Well, there were elements from different people, like Dave and maybe Barry back then, Greg Frost back then, Jim McMahon, but elements, but nothing, Karen Dice, but nothing that was taking me from A to Z. It was just like pieces of it. And, not too long ago, I was at an event. I was speaking, I was the keynote speaker, and they had a panel of realtors up there. And they asked the same questions over and over, these same crazy questions. Realtor, what do you think a loan officer should help you with? What do you mean? Should a loan officer call you or email you, whatever? They went down the panel, and the panel said, "Don't ever call me." And I watched loan officers go, "Don't call people. Don't call them." Right. And then the next one said, "I only want text." And like, "Oh, only text, only text." And the next one said, "Oh, you better call me." And they wrote it down, call people after they just said, "Don't call." Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, guys, it's like what we say in any sales is don't, a prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, right? Don't give them what you think they need. Find out what their needs are, right?
Mhm.
So anyway, so that reminds me of that because we're just shiny object people. And when you look at shiny object syndrome, it's SOS. It's a call for help, right? And so we take all these ideas and we just try to implement them, but we don't look at them as a whole and say, how does this fit into what I do? And so what I love doing in my coaching is I template everything and then say, okay, let's customize it for you, and it needs to align with your core values, right? And some other
Mhm.
things, but we need to customize it for you. And so when I think about the mechanics of this, and then
Mhm.
realizing, what the trick here is, I've got to get mindset in here. And part of that is I just need to go to all these conferences and I'll get motivated. I'll listen to Ron's podcast. I'll listen to Jen's podcast. I'll listen to Barry. I'll listen to everybody. And I'm just going to get motivated. The problem with motivation is it's short lived and it's external. You have to go get it from someone to be motivated.
Mhm.
And inspiration is what drives me. Digging deep and knowing what I freaking want in life, digging deep like that and that mindset shift allows for the momentum to happen. You can't have a good mindset. You can't just be, "Oh, I'm going to will it and I'm going to put it out in the universe and it's all just going to happen." You need the mechanics too. You need all of it to be able to create that momentum. And so for me, it's about what inspires me personally, what goals I want in my life that get me
Mhm.
up every single day, that I hop out of bed. I don't roll out and go, "Oh, time to make the donuts." I'm like, who can I impact today? What can I learn today? Where can I find a new idea that I can massage and genize it and see if it's something that will fit me or fit my clients? That's what gets me going. And, I'm a big family person. I'm very faith driven. I'm very family driven. Oh, and I got this gift from my daughter for my 60th birthday the other day. I don't know if you can see
Mhm.
this little green thing.
I can see
Has the
it.
entire Bible microfiched in it. Oh,
Oh,
I wanted this
wow.
necklace so badly.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it has the entire Bible microfiched in it. But anyway, you know, um, so it's faith, it's family, it's stability, it's integrity and accountability. Those are my core values in everything that I do. So, I'm very intelligent. I have a lot of intellect. It's masked by whatever
Mhm.
this personality is that comes out. My mom's like this, and my dad's the intellect, right? But I've always been driven to be more successful, more giving. You know, um, I was recently knighted. I'm now, part of
Oh,
the Royal House
wow.
of Cappadocia. I'm officially a dame. I go by Lady Jen now, but I'm a dame, but
Did
that's
not know
because of
that.
all the giving I do, because that's where the inspiration lies is, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And even Grant Cardone says this, people quit on money. It's like, oh, I made enough. I made 100,000, I made 500, I made a million, whatever your number is. I made my money and now I'm going to quit because I don't need to make more. Well, heck, if you know how to make a million, you know how to make 2 million, give 500,000 to somebody who needs it. And so that's what
Yeah.
inspires me. I don't really know much more to tell you. You know.
No,
Just
much more. I don't think you have to say anything more.
yeah.
You unpacked it amazing. You mentioned about all the people that have interviewed you or that you've connected with, and I'm a huge. I've been going to Tony Robbins events for three
Yeah.
decades,
Yeah.
and one of the words that he always says. I was just there this past summer, and he just says it again. He goes, "The secret to living is giving."
Yeah.
And I've always found, which is what you're talking about, and I want to, kind of make it go in that direction is the more I give, the more that just
Comes back.
comes.
Yeah.
It's not it goes way beyond just me. So I want to go back to something you said earlier because you know you, two things. One, when I asked you you being humble, which is first of all,
Just
I only interview people that are humble because I want nothing to do with people who aren't.
yeah.
Two, you talked about your coaching, which is very similar to what I do, where you're
Mm,
coaching the person, you're not throwing them into a template of
right.
everybody does the same thing, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do as well, because I don't believe in that one size fits all.
Yeah.
Another thing, and I'm just kind of unpacking a number of things that you said,
Yeah.
which I have a phrase because you talked about technology or the mechanics
Hmm.
and the chasing shiny objects. So I'll be curious what your thoughts are on this because I don't know if you've ever heard me say this. I say that if you're great at sales, technology will help you make you better.
Yeah.
If you stink at sales, technology will not do a damn thing for
No.
you except give you another way to spend money and a false belief.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally. There people ask all the time what's a magic bullet and they think it's all the technology. Now, I love technology. My husband
So do
calls
I.
me his millennial, right? He's like, millennial, pay attention to me, millennial, because I'm always doing technology, right? I love technology, but it is an accessory to the core of what business is all about. And I don't care what type of business. I own multiple businesses that have nothing to do with
Mhm.
mortgages, right? And it's the core of it. Relationships are the core of business. And you can't do it alone. You just can't. You can't you'll put a lid on your life and on your business when you try to do everything by yourself. You have to have community is what I call it, right? You have to have
Yep.
community. And yeah, technology is just it's the easy way to administer the community, but you have to have the community first. In fact, oh my gosh, his name just escaped me. Oh my gosh, I'll think of his name here in just a second. But anyway, he's one of my
Okay.
mentors. He's $45,000 a day to coach with him. 45,000 a day to coach with him. And so I've coached with him before. He's the third leg of Tony Robbins, Dan Graciosi, Kane Minkus. There we go. I got his name.
I don't know that name.
Kane's one of my mentors. He's kind of the behind the scenes guy, right? He's the one who's putting some of the tech together so that all the emails work and they can put 10,000 people on a Zoom meeting and all that stuff. But he's
Mhm.
also a great coach, okay, or mentor. He's fantastic. But one of the things he said to me, he said, and over these years, I mean, we've created a lot of wealth, right, for ourselves. But he said, "Do you want to be wealthy or do you want to be rich or do you want to be well known? Do you want to be rich or you want to be famous?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be rich. I don't want to be famous, right?" So that's why I like flying under there even before.
Mhm.
And I thought, "Oh, he's my perfect coach because I don't like this, look at me." Um,
Mhm.
and what I love about this is he said, "I want you to go to my Instagram." And so we were on a coaching call and I said, "Okay, let me go to the Instagram." And I'm thinking, tick, tick, tick. Why am I going to, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Why am I going to
Right.
your Instagram in my moments? But I get there and he has like 1,300 followers. And he said, "So Jen, let me show you my tax return. I want to show you the front page of my tax return. 5 million or $5 billion. $5 billion. Well, $45 a thousand a day, right? but $5 billion in income, and he has 1,300 followers. He said, "Do you want to be famous or do you want to be
I want to be
rich?"
rich.
And I said, "I definitely want to be rich. So what do we need to do?" Right? Like I wanted to expand in this realm. And so what I've learned is because a lot of people are hanging their hats on, I just have to have Facebook, I have to have Instagram, I have to have LinkedIn. Yes, you do, but you have to engage with people. It's no different than you sending stuff out from Total Expert or HomeBot or whatever. You're sending out the stuff, you're not engaging. That is not nurturing your database. That is sending crap to them. And the same thing happens when you're online. If all you do is post something and you don't engage, it's the exact same thing. You
You know,
have to talk to people. You're in sales. It's service, not sales.
I say this, and I don't know, and this is likely to irritate somebody who's watching this, but anybody who knows me, I pretty much say what the hell I think anyway,
Yeah.
within reason.
Well, I do
And
too. I have a other side of my cup.
there you
Naughty.
go, Huck. There you go.
Nice.
Nice. Um, and that is that, I look at a lot of these tech platforms and the technology is amazing, but I look at the content that is pre-written
Oh,
and this none of this is this is written by people who say they're marketers who don't know a damn thing about marketing. They don't know anything about engaging. They don't know anything about direct response. They don't know anything about relationships or
yeah,
very little. At least it comes out in their writing. And I see this from platform to platform to
yeah,
platform that what they're doing is they're shoving all this content into a product or a service. So they're saying we've got this, a list a mile long of all the things that they're offering. But anybody who understands anything about marketing knows, like you just said, it's crap. It it,
yeah.
it doesn't do any of the things that we're talking about. But what I want to do, because this is just, we can go on for hours.
Oh, I know. Well, let me just say one thing. We
Please.
hate being a commodity, and yet we use these platforms that have templated templates to post stuff, and you're just ingraining the commodity. That's all you're doing. You're making it
It,
even more.
it, exactly, exactly. And look, I remember years ago, I hired somebody. This is before I knew anything about social media, and I went into SM kicking and screaming until my team pushed the hell out of me to do it. And now I enjoy it because they manage it. But I hired somebody years ago. Oh, I'm going to do this. 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 And this was years ago. And I paid him $10,000.
Hmm.
And people are like, wow, that's a lot of money back then. I'm like, yeah. And I go, you want to know what I got for it? And they're like, what? I go, minus $10,000 in my bank account. It's the
Hmm.
only thing I got from it. Not a lead, not an engagement, nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody can be you. Nobody can do it. Nobody can duplicate the connection that you're going to create. You can have people that'll support you, but they can't be you.
Yeah.
So, on this podcast today, you, Jen, you've achieved heights that most people never achieve, and very few people in the origination world will have the foresight to do that. And maybe that's not even what they're looking for.
Hmm. Yeah.
We are going through an incredibly tough time right now in the market. Originations are near historic low, inventories near historic lows. I mean, we don't have to do a recap of all the headlines. I did
Right. Right.
I did see an article this morning which epitomizes stupidity, and that is they're talking about that there are people who are suggesting that we should go to the Canadian model or the Australian model, which is a portable mortgage.
Right.
Now, I've done training in Canada. I just did a training for a week this past summer in Australia. And I'm reading this article and smoke starts coming out of my ears because I go, this person has no freaking idea what they're talking about. Because they're saying a portable mortgage could free up inventory. Okay. Well, interest rates, dealing with people in Australia that have had 3, 4, 5, 6% adjustments because they have no caps. Whenever their government raises rates, their rate goes up.
Yeah.
So their
Well,
lock-in
we're
expired for two.
arbiters. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're talking about they don't even understand what's being offered in these countries. They're not even talking about what's going on, that there is no secondary market like it's here in the US. And oh yeah, there's a whole little other thing. Once you do portable mortgages, you're not going to need a whole lot more people in this industry anymore because you're going to see mortgage companies who are struggling to be profitable today. You put that into place, they can't be profitable, not with all the people in the industry. So it's just
Right, well, they
like
only have 5 banks up in 5 big mortgage companies up in, up in Canada,
exactly.
so,
So,
but
the
yeah,
I'm bringing this up
yeah,
again, it might be a little bit dated, by the time somebody listens to this podcast, but it's just that people don't, the metaphor I use is golf, which I stink at. My goal is to hit the shot straight, but a professional golfer or a great golfer is thinking two, three shots ahead and
mhm,
they're thinking placement. So here we are today,
yeah,
some incredible challenges. The likelihood of these challenges going away anytime soon is pretty slim.
mhm,
What do you say to that person who's saying, I'd love to be like you, but I'm not even in the same planet? Because what I don't want to have happen is you are motivating, you are inspiring. You talked about motivation. And anybody listening to you can't walk away from this podcast not feeling energized,
mhm,
but the ether of that wears off really fast
right,
because
that's
it came externally. So
yeah,
what is that person who's trying to just make it through this storm? And I don't believe in just trying to make it. I believe in thriving and taking advantage of it. Do what you success. Great success is born out of these opportunities. What's that advice that you give to the person who's either had success, and I'm not talking about 2020 and 2021 success, because if
yeah,
you
no,
weren't
no, no, no,
successful,
no,
then you just didn't have a pulse, or you didn't answer your phone.
yeah,
I'm just talking about that person that feels like they're starting over. That person, we don't have a whole lot of newer people in the industry anymore because most of them washed out.
yeah,
But you have just a lot of people trying to get their mindset right and they're grinding for loans, which I hate that term.
ugh, I
What's your message to them?
yeah. It's so layered, I will have to tell you, so, I hope I can finish this up in a short period of time.
Okay, we've got all
There's so
day.
much yeah, there's thing I mean, we could chop this up into 2, but, okay, so I'm gonna start with a bunch of quotes, and I've been writing stuff down, and that's why you keep seeing me go here because I wanna make sure
Sure,
I touch on all this stuff.
love it.
So H. Jackson Brown Jr., okay, H. Jackson Brown Jr., he wrote, Life's Little, instruction book. You've seen it, it's a little plaid book.
Mhm.
Hopefully you've seen it. If you haven't, go get it. Life's Little Instruction Book.
I've
He
heard of it.
wrote
I haven't seen it. I'm being
one of
honest.
his, and
So
it's just a little book. It's like a little pamphlet kind of thing. But anyway, he says that the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of quotes and then we
I love
can
it.
backtrack on this if we need to. But the best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. Um, right. So that's one thing. I already said mechanics plus moment, plus mindset is equals momentum or
Okay.
mindset plus mechanics. I don't care, whatever you want to do it.
Either, don't matter.
Okay, Les Brown says, he says, if you do it's hard, your life will become easy. If you do it's easy, your life will become hard. Now he also has some other quotes. He says, if you treat your business if you treat your business casually, your business will become a casualty. That it's kind of the same thing. The problem, and I probably have some other quotes here that I'm going to try to
And
pull
you're
out
doing
here in
great.
a few minutes, but let's talk about Les Brown's for a second. Les Brown says, if you do what's hard, your life will be easy. If you do what's easy, your life will be hard. If we float along and we kind of bob with the market, always say that rates are like the market, right? You just kind of float around and sometimes it bobs up and sometimes it jumps down and then it bobs, right? But if you do that in your life and in your career, you're going to get what the market gives you always. So don't be a bobber, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
that's life is easy. But you have to do it's hard first. What people think that means is that it means working long hours. That's what doing the hard work is. It isn't working long hours because after I cracked the code, my volume went to 102. I was at 102 million and I was working 4 days a week and I never went backwards. Never. And still today, I don't. I'm up at my lake house this next 3 days because I just feel like being in my lake house, right? Um, and I think that that's what's important. And so what it means, and when I was traveling with Les, I started learning more and more. It's not about working, it's not about because he always says if you do it's hard, but he doesn't say work hard, he says do the hard work. And it means digging in for a while so you can have the joy and the victory of it. And General Patton says that too. He says a quote very similar, which I don't have in front of me right now, but It's the same thing. And it's digging in. So what I would say now is, and so here's another quote is your future is a series of nows. Your future 3 months, 6 months from now is a series of what you're doing right now. So if you're, and here's another one, if you're planning to hibernate during the winter, because in the holiday season, if you're planning to hibernate and rather than hyper focus, then your future will be a series of nows. And you'll come
I
out stretching and, oh, what's going on? And everybody else is like, oh, it's been crazy.
uh,
Right?
I'm laughing because here we are, and it is just after Thanksgiving, and you have people sitting and say, "I'm getting ready for the holidays," and I'm thinking to myself, "What the
Does that mean?
takes 30 days to get ready?" No, it's your escape hatch. It's a reason not to
Right.
work. It's a justification. I'm burned out. I'm tired, and then everybody thinks like, okay, January 2nd hits because January 1st we're off. January 2nd hits, and oh, I'm going to be ready to hit it hard. No, it's like this slow motion start again
Yeah.
because you've developed a really bad habit in 30 days of not working really hard. And you really don't just turn that on like a light switch. That's why I always laugh. I've been at my gym
Yeah.
for, I just looked it up, for 22 years. And I laugh every
Yeah. Oh,
January,
I
that
think it's
first
so
two,
funny.
3 weeks. And I'm there at 5 to 5:15 almost every morning.
Yeah. And I'm like,
And I
get
laugh
off my treadmill.
I'm and I'm just looking at him like, okay, I know these people are going to be gone in 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
we get a couple of stragglers that last maybe 30 days, and it goes back to the same core of
Well,
people
and it happens with loan officers.
year after year. It's the same thing.
And you've heard this,
So
I mean, this phraseology, I'm not going to say I coined it at all, but I mean, it's been around for a long time. Are you a 10-1 loan officer? Are you, yeah, are you a 10-1 loan officer? You've been in the business 10 years, one at a time. You love New Year's Eve and you hate New Year's Day and you start over. And you made this comment earlier saying, we just feel like we're starting over. Your business should never be in a position where you're ever starting over. Ever, nothing. Whether you're hiring
yep,
someone, one of my clients, she said, I lost my LOA, now I got to start over. And I go, what? Wait a minute. We don't ever start
those-
over. You need to be a
those-
talent scout day in, day out. Always have a second string. Can you imagine someone going football, right? They got 11 guys on each side and they're like, sorry that you got injured. We don't have anybody. Are you kidding me? How are you going to win the game? You can't win a game without having that backup, right? In all things. The way that you
yep.
market on social media, the way that you have your community and your relationships, the way you nurture your database, right? The way you nurture your relationships. Your partners that you have, all of them need to have a backup strategy so that you can survive and thrive in these periods. No more peaks and valleys. We want rolling hills, right? And so, yes, I had times when my business wasn't as good, but it never went to starting over. Never,
I
never
did it
went to,
once in
and that's
2008.
all you had to do it was once.
In 2008, I, and I tell people this, by the way, these companies being out of business is not my fault. Okay.
Right, right.
But back in 2008, I was speaking in front of more loan officers than anybody in the country because simultaneously I had five major lenders: American Brokers Conduit, First National Bank of Arizona, Countrywide, Option One, WMC, and there's one or two more that I'm not recalling. All were flying me around the country. I was on the road 15 to 20 days a month. The only program I was not part of was New Century's Close More You, or whatever the hell it was
Yeah,
called. That was the
yeah,
only program
yeah.
I wasn't part of.
Right.
Everything else, I was being brought in, and I was speaking to literally thousands upon thousands of originators every month. 2008 hit, and we all know what happened if you were in the industry, and if you're not, you read about it. 2008 hit, and my business got destroyed in 120 days.
Yeah.
And I had originated for a while. I had sold out of my mortgage brokerage years earlier, many years earlier, and I went back to originating. And I remember, figuring all this out. And I was in my office and I was pacing, like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
And I made a decision in 2009. I said, I am going to rebuild my training business that will be more profitable and give me more freedom than it ever did before.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how the hell I was going to do it, Jen. No idea.
Just know you're gonna, it's funny because in 2008, I remember having this conversation, and I wrote this down because I have to add this to my story thing because I forgot
Sure.
about it. Um, my husband and I were working, we had just moved in 2004 to our dream home, our 21-acre property. And we built an office above our garage, and we had 5 branches. We were a broker and all that good stuff. And we said, I said, I wish I was less ethical because I could be making a ton of money because we were watching everybody make a ton of money. And I said, I wish I could be less ethical because when all the subprimes were coming out of the A's minus B, C, D loans, right? All of that. We did too. I did a 327 and I coached my client out of that loan. And then I did another subprime and it ended up being a gay couple and they got divorced, right? And so they lost the house. So that was the only plan. None of my clients went into foreclosure. None of them. And then that other client that they lost the house, it was short sale. It wasn't foreclosure. And we were struggling because we were like, oh, if we did more of that, we'd be, because there were a little bit, but we didn't have a valley. We had a soft landing and I could have kept it higher, but I decided that again, going back to my core values, one of them is integrity, right? And stability. And I said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this flash in the pan. So when your business, and not to hurt you, but when your business went, and everybody else's business went, I was doing fine because I was already in the right mode. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people here is please don't ever start over. Just simply adjust. I know I just heard an ad for IKEA and they said in these hard times when prices are really high, etc., IKEA's lowered the price on everything to help you. They're known for this. They're known for this. In Canada, there's one moving day a year in July. All rents are on the same thing. They're on the same cycle. It's the craziest thing. Everybody moves in July. IKEA went in and said, hey, we're going to provide you all with free boxes for moving day. And you think, God, that's really expensive. Except on every box, there was a discount coupon, right? Like, hey, come in, it's 25% off, da 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 da. They made 3 times as much money.
That's what
It's
they invested.
just simply adjusting and
Yeah.
not falling, into what you're hearing on the news and all this other stuff and what you're hearing in your offices. You got to put the blinders on and be you, right? And be you and never be in a position where you're going to start over. So anyway, that's what I
Uh,
had to say
And,
about that. I just don't think
and,
that's,
and by the way, what you said to me is nothing that I haven't thought about what I went through.
yeah,
And I, I remember it now. Needless to say, my life is amazing now financially. I'm in
yeah,
unbelievable, fantastic shape. And even with the market slowing down right now, I have more opportunities that are coming my way in the last 60 days. And this is, coming into the end of 2023, where all of a sudden it's like, I knew if I kept on putting it out there, more people are going to say, hey, I do need help now. And there's just so many opportunities that are coming because I didn't stick to what I was doing. No, I stick to tried and true principles and
change your tactic.
I just continue to up it, up it, up it, up it, and adding more and more of a twist to it. What I want to do, because we've been on for a long
Yeah,
time, I want
yeah,
to circle back to something that you said because I think this is so important. Everything, by the way, has been really important and phenomenal in this podcast. You had talked about educating realtors.
mhm,
And, so right now, the negativity in the real estate side of things is incredibly negative. Besides inventory and everything else, we have the lawsuits that we don't even know how that's going to play out, and everybody's
yeah.
speculating, whatever.
But
We
again,
know
I
some
don't
things will
care.
change.
I don't
I don't
care.
care either
Just go
because there's always going
stay
to
the
be
course.
stay the course.
Yeah.
So here's the question though. My advice to LOs is you've got to be a voice of inspiration. You've got to be talking about, when people are negative, not getting swooped into that negative conversation, but asking questions that gets people to think differently. And that's a form of
Yeah.
education. So, what would be
Okay.
your final message to LOs that are
Yeah.
out there?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple things. I found one of the quotes I want to give you, and it's just
Oh,
that
sure.
the opportunity is perfect. So this is from General Patton, right? If everyone is thinking alike, then someone isn't thinking.
Mhm. Yep. I've heard that
Okay.
one.
So stop thinking like everybody else. That would be the first thing is don't placate
Love
to
it.
this. One of the things we learn in just generic sales skills is that when someone says, "Oh, but rates are high," yes, they're high. Now let's talk about this, that, and the other. You don't dive in and succumb to it, right? You don't succumb to all the negativity that people have and the objections that they have and, agree with them on all of their objections. I certainly can understand your position. However, let's talk about that. So that's one of the first things that we do, the first things that we think about. But um, okay, so think in terms of opportunities and not leads. That would be number one.
Mhm.
Stop thinking in terms of leads. When I say your future is a series of nows, and you really got to dig in and get ready for when the when happens, because the when will happen. Be ready for when the
Mhm.
when happens. If you go hibernate, you're not going to be ready for when the when happens. It's just like when the pandemic came, there were a lot of people who said, well, I have my process here. And then when they got a flurry of loans in, they didn't know how to handle the scalability of it, right? And they weren't ready for when the when happened. And so while you made a lot of money, had the best year ever, so much money was left on the table because you
Mhm.
weren't ready for when the when happened.
Mhm.
So think in terms of opportunities. Can you be speaking and doing one to many? Can you be inspiring people? Can you give them nuggets? Can you give them, I'm not a scripter. I like catchphrases that lead into the truth, but can
Mhm.
you do catchphrases? Look for opportunities and not for leads necessarily right now. That would be number one. Number two is
Love it.
um, Adopt a Mortgage. I started the Adopt a Mortgage program 25 some years ago. And then we turned it into mortgages under management. That Adopt a Mortgage, I will adopt your mortgage. Matter of fact, it was in 2008 when it happened. Have you been orphaned by your last lender because they're no longer in the business? I would like to adopt your mortgage and manage your mortgage. So just like Bob manages your assets, I'm going to manage your debt. And when you ask someone who manages your assets, they don't say, I don't even know the companies because I don't invest there. I invest in real estate. What are the companies? Edward Jones, right? They don't say Edward Jones, they say Bob. Yet when we ask people who's managing your mortgage, they say Wells Fargo. And we go, no, no, they're servicing your mortgage. Who's managing it? Well, he was good, but I don't know him. The realtor was good, but I don't know her either, right? And so adopt borrowers. Get your database bigger. This is getting ready for when the win happens. There are tons and tons. I probably should use thousands or millions, whatever. There are hundreds of thousands of people that bought houses with high interest rates, and their loan officer is gone.
Mhm. Oh, yep.
Who's going to get the
And
business? The
more are gonna
service.
disappear.
Morgan Dispier, and who's going to get the business? The servicer. So adopt clumps of, or whatever they call it, groupings of databases from your realtors. Go to your realtors and say, look, has your lender left the business? I'd like to adopt that book of business that you gave to that lender so that your clients are taken care of,
That's a
so
brilliant
that
concept.
you'll be ready when happens too, right? So now same thing. Have you had someone in your office or a colleague or whatever that left the business? Let's work on adopting their book of business as well and provide them with timely updates of what's happening in the market. Do their annual reviews, nudge them, nurture them,
Mhm.
ask for business from them. We're looking for opportunities from them, not necessarily the lead. That's just for the people that have high interest rates. Then you have people who have low interest rates that are afraid to give up their 3% rate. So they're running out and they're now getting HELOCs. And I promise you, life events happen regardless of what happens in the market.
They
Go to your
do.
financial planners. There are life events. People are dying, people are getting married, people are having children, people are getting divorced. All these events are happening and they still need loans. And you
I
need to be there for when the when happens.
I'm gonna just jump in for a second. One of the things that I always tell people, which is the short version of what you just said, which you articulated it perfectly. I say, the more people that know you do mortgages
The
and
more
that you
business
are a
you
professional, the more business you will do. This is not, I'm not an economist. I think I was best I ever got was a B or B plus in math or any mathematic course. But it's a simple fact that the more people who are homeowners or thinking about buying homes or in your network that are professionals who can refer people, the more people who know, the more business you will do.
yeah.
And what
Because
are
I
your skills to expand that?
Right, and Grant says this too, a 10X Grant says this, or no, he doesn't say it. Who said this? Maybe it was Les, who said, it's not about how many people you know, it's how many people know you. And and that's
Yep.
the key thing, right? And so when someone says to you, "Oh my gosh, I see you everywhere." Well, that's the whole point. It's part of what, one of the major things of cracking the code. The code is increasing your influence and your expertise. That's why I said go to one to many, look for opportunities, go talk to, because I've done it. I promise I've done it. Go talk to the local quilters chapter. Someone called me one day and said, "Hey, will you come and talk to the local quilters chapter?" And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I was a lender at the time. And I was like,
Mhm.
what am I going to do with that? That's crazy. But I found out those quilters are business owners, right?
Mhm.
And they have needs and they have a house and they live someplace.
Mhm.
So go talk to everybody. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so I would say, if you've been orphaned, if your realtor's been orphaned, if your a client has been orphaned, if then go adopt the mortgage, go adopt every piece of it that you can. Adopt that realtor's business and say, "Hey, look, let's get you on track right now." One of the things you said is January to January. I actually have, ever since I cracked the code, I work a fiscal year. So my business plan is done September 30th. And all of
Mhm.
my clients, their business plans are done September 30th. We start October 1st. And we use this holiday season to implement, right? If you think of the growth chart, the four stages of growth, right? Growth, we're doing formulation, concentration, momentum, and stability. And so we're doing that formulation and concentration the last 3 months of the year when everybody else is sitting around and hibernating and I'm having the holidays. And I'm going to strike it when everybody else says, by January, I'm getting the results
Mhm.
for the
Yep.
year. And I create that momentum, for the year. The last thing I want to say
Go
and
ahead.
I call it counsel, not advice, just so you know, because I don't provide any advice to anyone on anything I haven't tried myself, right? So here's my counsel. One, go adopt some mortgages, adopt some businesses,
Love
stir
that.
them up, be the straw that stirs the market. Number two is squeeze everything you can out of every deal you have right now. I have some strategies that I give to my students. It's 12 different strategies on how you can manifest instead of one and done. How do we get one and one and one and one? There's 12 strategies. If all 12 hit, you'll turn one loan into 12. But what if you could just do one? What if you could do one strategy that would turn one loan into two and your volume doubles overnight? In fact, I will tell you that I don't give all the strategies to my new clients because they can't handle it. They don't have the systems in place to handle that influx of volume, but I can have it happen instantly. But so that's one thing that you need to consider is how can you take that one loan and turn it into multiple loans? We have all known this about the 1003 and page 5 and all that stuff, but it is gold mine a gold mine of opportunities. See, the reason people don't look at it that way is because they're looking for leads.
Mhm. Yep.
Let's look for opportunities in every aspect of the application, every aspect of the process, so that you can manifest more business out of every single deal you have because right now they're so precious.
Yep. Jen, this brilliance as always, which is why I've accomplished so much.
Thank
Your advice here, or I'm sorry, counsel, not advice, counsel.
It's okay.
Your counsel here is, it's off the charts, and it's really very much needed. Not only the ideas but the inspiration. If you had to do in 30 seconds that
Mhm.
one final piece of advice you're going to give to the audience before we say goodbye, what would that be? You're
Oh,
giving so much. I'm asking you for one more.
I know, and you're asking me to do it in 30 seconds.
Yep.
Let me think here.
Don't make me put up a timer.
No, 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 I don't want a timer on it. But I'm losing precious seconds. I would just say, I mean, stop talking, take action, and get results.
Stop talking, take action, and get results. And what do they do what do they do when they're not getting the results right away that they were hoping for? That quick fix that so
Set your
many people are
expectations.
after.
Set your expectations differently now. This is your plan B. This is your plan B. You're
Beautiful.
not gonna get 20 deals this month. Maybe. Some people will. I have a couple
Some
clients who
people
are. But you're not gonna get
okay.
20 closings this month, okay? Set your expectation. Hey, this is plan B. This is plan B. We just lost our front line, and now what do we need to do to still win the game?
Yep.
Be ready
Perfect.
for when the win happens.
Jen, I cannot thank you enough for I
I
mean, we
can't
went
thank you
way
enough. Thank you.
well, this is great. And, for those of you that couldn't tell, you can see that this was not rehearsed. This was just, you know, two people having a conversation, trying to give you as much advice as we possibly can. Jen, I'm so grateful that you took the time to talk to my audience, and just share so many things. I know that, one of your areas of expertise, which I would love to do this again with you, and that is talking about scaling business.
Yeah, yeah,
Want to get people, this one is getting people over that first hump when, right now we can talk about scaling, but there's a lot of people who can't even fathom that right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
incremental. So we're definitely going to do this again if you're cool with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love talking about that. I love talking about relationships. I love talking about scaling. I love systems. I love market influence. You name it. I love it. I love all aspects of business. And, this is, I have another phrase. It's called stop working in and on your business and start living above and beyond your business. And I'm trademarking it right now.
Oh, I
And
like that.
yeah, because so often we're in and on, in and on, in and on, and we need
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
start looking at how can we be above and beyond. And having multiple streams of income, that would be helping a lot of people right now.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I love helping people do. So thank you. Yeah, I'd love it.
Uh,
And you're going to be on my podcast. Can I do a little plug for you? So
you
you're going
sure
to be on
can.
my podcast, Mortgage Lending Mastery. We're going to do a little podcast swapping here. So,
Love it.
listen to this, watch this one, and then go seek out Mortgage Lending Mastery and look for Ron to be on that one because he'll be on that one shortly.
Can't wait.
His,
Jen,
yeah.
Jen, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Always
Thank
great seeing you. Always great talking to you, and just very much appreciated for everything we just did here today.
thank you.